Hey, ChatGTP, what does the Quran or Hadith say about the Greater Israel, Medina's destruction, and the end times? Would you like to shed some light on it?
Surah al-Nisa, chapter 4, verse 159. And there is none from the people of the Scripture but that he will surely believe in him before his death. And on the day of resurrection, he will be against them a witness. This verse is often interpreted to mean that all people of the Scripture, Jews and Christians, will ultimately believe in Jesus before their death, which is linked to his return. Clearly, the Quran addresses themes related to end times prophecies, including the signs of the Day of Judgment, the role of figures like the Mahdi, a rightly guided leader, and the return of Jesus, Isa.
Thank you so much, ChatGPT. Let's dive deeper into this chapter together with Jack and Wilson.
Okay, so this time, you guys have really sent us down a rabbit hole this time. We're going to be diving deep into end times prophecies.
Yeah, and what makes this deep dive so interesting is that we're not just talking about ancient texts,
Right.
but how some people believe these prophecies are playing out like right now in current events.
Exactly. So our source material for this deep dive is this YouTube video discussion.
Yeah.
It's a discussion with an Islamic scholar, Ustad Wahash Tareen,
Right.
about how Judaism, Christianity, and Islam view the roles of Israel and Palestine in the end times.
It's fascinating how a place geographically so small can be so central in these prophecies, right?
It really is.
Yeah.
And the thing that I thought was really interesting was the concept of like Greater Israel.
Right.
And the potential rebuilding of the Temple of Solomon. These aren't just kind of abstract ideas.
Mm-hmm.
They have real-world implications, that could really impact global politics.
Absolutely.
And interfaith relations.
Yeah, no, it's a really complex web of beliefs and interpretations. Maybe a good place to start would be with the concept of the Messiah,
Okay.
which is a term you'll find in all three faiths.
All right, let's unpack that. So I know that like Messiah just means anointed one, but I'm guessing each religion has its own specific understanding of who this figure is.
For sure.
And what their role will be.
Yeah. So in Judaism, the Messiah is like a future king who will rule over a greater Israel.
Yeah.
And this greater Israel is like a vast territory. They say it extends from the Euphrates River to the Nile River.
Wow.
So this is a key point of tension because you can imagine to achieve that vision would involve expanding far beyond Israel's current borders.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. So for Jewish people, the Messiah hasn't come yet.
Right.
But for Christians, where does Jesus fit into all of this?
So for Christians, Jesus is the Messiah,
Okay.
and they believe he will return for like a second time.
Right.
But a lot of evangelical Christians believe that this return will be preceded by some pretty dramatic events, like including the appearance of the Antichrist in a rebuilt Temple of Solomon in Jerusalem.
So the rebuilding of the temple isn't just like a historical footnote.
Right.
It's like this pivotal event in Christian end times prophecy.
Yeah. And for evangelical Christians, it's very much intertwined with the figure of the Antichrist, which is like the false Messiah,
Right.
who will deceive a lot of people and bring about a period of great tribulation. It's pretty dramatic.
It is, yeah. Okay, so we've got like the Jewish Messiah who hasn't come yet, and we've got the Christian Messiah who's already come,
Right.
but is expected to return. So where does Islam fit into this whole thing?
So Muslims also believe in the return of Jesus,
Okay.
but they view him as a prophet,
Right.
not a divine figure. And he will return to defeat the Antichrist, who is known as the Dajjal in Islam,
Okay.
and to uphold Islamic law,
Gotcha.
not to establish a new religion or to change existing beliefs.
So all three faiths agree on the return of Jesus, but their interpretations of his role
Yes.
are vastly different.
Right. Very different. And so this kind of brings us to a figure who seems to be like this common thread in all of these prophecies, and that's the Antichrist. And the thing that I find so fascinating and maybe even a little creepy is how vividly he's described
Right.
in all of these texts.
Yeah, the descriptions are so detailed. It's like almost cinematic.
Yeah.
Like he's said to have this flawed eye.
Okay.
And then the word kafir, which means disbeliever, written on his forehead, only visible to people with true faith. And he has all these supernatural powers.
Wow.
And what I found really interesting is that this video specifically links the Antichrist to the destruction of Medina,
Okay.
which is the second holiest city in Islam after Mecca.
Wait, hold on. The destruction of Medina?
Yeah.
Whoa, that's a pretty huge claim. What does the prophecy even say about how this will happen?
So this is where it gets really interesting. The prophecies suggest that the building of the third temple in Jerusalem which is a key event in both Jewish and Christian end times narratives, will somehow lead to the destruction of Medina. That's a pretty bold prediction. But why would Muslims just leave a thriving city? I mean, what could possibly cause such a mass exodus?
So that's where the mystery gets even deeper. The Hadith, which are the sayings and traditions of the Prophet Muhammad, suggest that the destruction might be caused by something that makes the air toxic.
Wow.
Or even like a neurological agent that only affects humans but not animals. And there's even this image of wolves just like roaming these deserted streets of Medina. Like, it's actually pretty chilling.
This is starting to sound like an apocalyptic movie.
Yeah, it is.
But is there any hope in these prophecies? Like, does anything positive come after this period of destruction?
Yes, absolutely. So following the destruction of Medina, Muslims believe that 12 rightly guided layers will emerge, culminating in the arrival of the Mahdi.
Okay.
It was a messianic figure who will fight alongside Jesus against the Antichrist.
So it's not just doom and gloom. There's like this cyclical element to these prophecies.
For sure.
A sense that even after great devastation, there's the possibility for renewal and the ultimate triumph of good over evil.
Exactly. And that concept of cyclical renewal is a key theme that we're going to be exploring further as we continue this deep dive.
Okay.
But before we get into that, I think it's important to understand the concept of Greater Israel and how it fits into all of these prophecies.
Yes. Let's delve into that a little bit, because the video mentioned that some Jewish groups are actually actively trying to fulfill this prophecy of a Greater Israel. So what are they doing exactly, and what are the implications for the region?
So that's what we're going to explore as we continue our deep dive.
Yeah.
And this concept of Greater Israel, it's not just some abstract theological idea.
Right.
It has some very real and potentially volatile implications for people living in that region, and particularly the Palestinians. So, like we were saying, this idea of Greater Israel, like, it envisions this vastly expanded territory, going way beyond the current borders of Israel. Some proponents imagine it stretching, like all the way from the Euphrates River to the Nile River.
Wow.
Encompassing parts of, modern-day Jordan, Syria, and Egypt.
That's a huge chunk of land.
Right.
It's not hard to see how this vision could lead to some conflict, especially given all the existing tensions in the region.
Absolutely. And the desire to fulfill this prophecy, including rebuilding the Temple of Solomon, is a driving force for certain groups within Israel.
Yeah.
But it also raises serious concerns for the Palestinians who live in those territories.
Yeah, it sounds like a recipe for disaster. Like, if certain groups are actually actively trying to make these prophecies a reality.
Right.
Could that actually escalate things and make a conflict more likely?
It's a question worth considering.
Yeah.
And it's something that the scholar in the video, Usta Wahaj Taran, emphasizes as well. He talks about how these end times prophecies, no matter what your faith or interpretation, should ultimately encourage people to work for peace and understanding, not to escalate conflict.
That's a really important point. It's easy to get caught up in the dramatic narratives of these prophecies, but we can't lose sight of the human cost of conflict.
Absolutely. And this brings up another fascinating aspect of these prophecies. Their cyclical nature.
Right.
It's not just like a straight line to inevitable doom, but a pattern of destruction and renewal of darkness giving way to light.
You mentioned earlier the prophecy of the 12 rightly guided leaders in Islam, culminating in the arrival of the Mahdi.
Right.
It's like hitting a reset button.
Yeah.
A chance for humanity to start over after going through a period of immense tribulation.
Precisely. The cyclical nature of these prophecies kind of reminds us that even if humanity stumbles and falls, there's always the potential for redemption. It's a message of hope, even in the face of seemingly insurmountable challenges.
So even if these end times prophecies do happen, it's not necessarily the end, right? It could be the beginning of something new, like a chance for a fresh start.
That's a powerful way to think about it. And this idea of cyclical renewal kind of ties into another key theme that runs through all of these prophecies: the importance of individual righteousness.
Right. It's not just about passively waiting for, the Messiah.
Right.
Or fearing the Antichrist.
Exactly.
It's about taking responsibility for our actions and striving to live ethically, regardless of what the future may hold.
Exactly. The prophecies emphasize personal piety.
Right.
Moral conduct.
Yeah.
And standing up for what's right, even when faced with immense pressure. It's about cultivating good character and living in alignment with our values.
That makes me think about that story of the people of the cave from the Quran. Surah Al-Kahf.
Oh, yeah.
You know, a group of young men sought refuge from this corrupt society
Right.
and found solace in their shared faith.
Hmm.
It's about finding that inner strength
Yeah.
and resilience,
For sure.
even when surrounded by darkness.
That's a great example. The video highlights that story as like a model for how we should prepare for challenging times. It's about finding our safe haven within a community
Right.
that shares our values and strengthens our resolve.
So it's not just about individual righteousness,
Yeah.
but it's also about collective action,
Right.
about banding together with others
Absolutely.
who are committed to justice and goodness.
Mm.
It's about building a community that can, weather the storms.
Precisely. And this collective action isn't limited to, any particular religious group.
Right.
The video emphasizes that there are people of conscience in every faith tradition who oppose violence and oppression.
Yeah.
There are Jews and Christians who reject the idea of a greater Israel achieved through conflict, and there are Muslims who advocate for peace and understanding between faiths.
That's such an important point. It reminds us that these prophecies can be interpreted in many ways,
Right.
and that there are people within each faith
Yeah.
who are working towards a more peaceful and just world.
Absolutely.
It's not just like this monolithic us versus them
Yeah.
situation.
Absolutely. And it highlights the need for dialogue and
Yeah.
understanding across religious divides.
Wow.
We can't let these prophecies be used to justify violence or
Right.
hatred.
So while these end times prophecies can feel like daunting and even terrifying,
Yeah.
there's also this message of empowerment
Absolutely.
woven throughout them. It's a call to action, urging us to, cultivate our personal virtue,
Right.
strengthen our communities, and work actively towards a more just and compassionate world.
I completely agree. It's about focusing on what we can control, even amidst the uncertainty of what may come. It's about taking responsibility for our actions
Yeah.
and shaping the present in a way that reflects our highest ideals.
Yeah. This deep dive has really made me think about the complex interplay between like faith, prophecy, and current events.
Yeah.
It's fascinating how these ancient texts can still like speak to us today,
Oh.
even in our modern
Absolutely.
secular world.
It's a testament to the enduring power of these narratives and
Right.
the deep human need to grapple with questions of meaning,
Right.
purpose,
Yeah.
and destiny. But before we get too philosophical, I think it's important to acknowledge that for many people, these prophecies aren't just abstract ideas.
Right.
They're deeply personal beliefs
Right.
that shape their understanding of the world and their place in it.
Yeah, you're right. And we need to approach those beliefs with sensitivity and
Absolutely.
respect,
Yeah.
even if we don't necessarily like share them ourselves.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the most important takeaways from this deep dive. The need for respectful dialogue and a willingness to listen to and learn from those who hold different beliefs,
Right.
especially when it comes to such sensitive and potentially divisive topics like end times prophecies.
This conversation has given us a lot to unpack. We need to take a quick second and gather our thoughts, and then we'll be right back for the final part of our deep dive into these fascinating and thought-provoking prophecies.
Hey everyone, before we dive into that, I was delving into my YouTube channel analytics and noticed most of you who watch my videos are not subscribed to the channel. Would you do me a huge favor, please, and hit the subscribe button? It really motivates me and helps the channel to grow so I can do more videos just like the one you're about to watch. So without further ado, let's dive in.
It's easy to get kind of swept up, in the drama and intensity of these end times prophecies. But I think there's a deeper layer here that's worth exploring, right?
Yeah, I agree. Maybe we can shift our focus from trying to predict the future and instead look at the psychological and spiritual questions these prophecies raise,
That's an interesting angle. So instead of getting bogged down in the when and the how,
Right.
we can look at the why, what these prophecies reveal about human nature and our deepest hopes and fears.
Exactly. These prophecies, regardless of their specific details, they often tap into universal anxieties about the unknown, the loss of control,
Right.
the potential for chaos and destruction. But they also speak to our longing for, a better world.
Right. For justice, peace, and a sense of meaning and purpose.
It's almost as if they're, holding up a mirror to
Yeah.
our collective psyche,
Yes.
reflecting back, our anxieties about the state of the world and our yearning for something more.
I like that analogy. And by engaging with these prophecies on that level, on like a psychological level, we can gain valuable insights into our own beliefs and motivations.
Right.
You know, what do our hopes and fears reveal about like our values, our priorities, and our understanding of the world?
This makes me think about the figure of the Antichrist.
Right.
Who is often depicted as like this master of deception, someone who like preys on our vulnerabilities and kind of tempts us away from righteousness.
Yeah, and that archetype of like the deceiver, the manipulator, that exists in a lot of cultures and mythologies. It speaks to a very like primal fear of being misled, of falling prey to, false promises and ideologies.
So symbolically, the Antichrist could represent those forces in our own lives.
Right.
Or in society at large.
Yeah.
That tempt us away from our values.
Right.
And lead us down a destructive path.
Exactly. It could be anything from like negative self-talk and limiting beliefs to external pressures that encourage us to compromise our integrity, or even those societal forces that promote division and hatred.
Right. Yeah. So confronting the Antichrist symbolically could mean confronting those inner and outer demons that prevent us from living, authentic and ethical lives. It's about cultivating discernment, critical thinking, and the courage to resist those influences that would lead us astray.
That's a powerful insight. And it brings us back to the importance of personal responsibility, even in the face of, seemingly overwhelming challenges. We always have that power to choose how we respond, how we act, and what kind of future we're contributing to.
So even amidst a world that sometimes feels like it's teetering on the brink, we still have agency.
Right.
We can choose to be like forces for good, to promote understanding and compassion, even when surrounded by, negativity and fear.
Absolutely. And that choice, that like individual act of will, that's maybe the most crucial preparation for whatever the future holds, It's about focusing on what we can control, our thoughts, our words, our actions, and striving to embody those values that will make a positive difference in the world.
It's a powerful reminder that we're not just passive bystanders in this unfolding drama. We have the power to shape the narrative, to contribute to a more just and compassionate world, regardless of what challenges may lie ahead.
And that brings us back to like the cyclical nature of these prophecies, which offers this glimmer of hope, even amidst, the direst predictions. It suggests that even if humanity stumbles and falls, there's always a possibility of redemption, of rising from the ashes and creating something new and better.
Yeah, it's a powerful message of resilience and renewal. It reminds us that history isn't like fixed, that we have the capacity to learn from our mistakes and create a future that reflects our highest aspirations.
And maybe that's the most valuable takeaway from these ancient prophecies. They remind us that the future isn't predetermined, that we all have a role to play in shaping it, and that even amidst the shadows, there's always a glimmer of hope, a possibility for transformation, if we choose to embrace it.
Well, this deep dive has been quite a journey. We've explored these prophecies from like multiple angles: historical, theological, psychological, and even personal. And while there's still much to ponder and think about, I think we can all agree that these prophecies continue to resonate with humanity's deepest anxieties and aspirations, challenging us to confront these fundamental questions about our place in the universe and the choices we make in shaping the future.
Well said. And as we navigate, this increasingly complex and uncertain world, maybe these ancient narratives can offer us, guidance, inspiration, and a reminder that even in the face of darkness, the human spirit has an incredible capacity for resilience, hope, and transformation.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into end times prophecies. We hope that this exploration has sparked your curiosity and inspired you to continue grappling with these fascinating and thought-provoking topics.
Until next time, keep seeking knowledge, keep questioning assumptions, and keep striving to make the world a better place.
Thank you for joining us for today's podcast. I hope you've gained some valuable insights. If you're a truth seeker, yearning for divine light and ready to step out of darkness, now is your moment. The truth is that Allah is the one and only creator of the universe. He has sent over 124,000 messengers and prophets to guide humanity, starting with Adam and culminating with the final messenger, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon them all. If you resonate with this message, you might be ready to embrace Islam. Simply recite the Shahada, the Islamic declaration of faith. For further support, feel free to join our WhatsApp group. You can send us a private message there. The link is in the video description. Don't wait until it's too late. We look forward to connecting with you soon.